The familiar forest in Colorado had become a regular escape for me, a haven located just a couple of hours away from my home. I found solace in the embrace of nature, often venturing into its depths every few months, particularly when the weather was inviting. On this particular occasion, I had set up camp and had already spent 2 full days immersing myself in the simplicity of the wilderness. The initial days were dedicated to establishing the campsite and engaging in peaceful fishing expeditions. As the 3rd day unfolded, I decided to embark on a hike north of my campsite. This wasn't a trek along well-worn trails. Instead, I navigated the mountainside, relying on my knowledge of landmarks and equipped with everything necessary to ensure I wouldn't lose my way. The midday sun warmed my path, and I relished the stroll. However, my tranquility was shattered when I noticed a column of smoke billowing from behind me, seemingly originating from near my campsite. Alarmed, I circled back, hoping for a clearer view. The unsettling sight persisted, hinting at something burning either at my camp or nearby. Anxiety fueled my hastened return, but upon reaching a quarter mile from the source of the smoke, it became evident that the disturbance was not directly linked to my camp. Puzzled, I confirmed that everything at my site was intact, but the mysterious smoke emanated from somewhere concealed within the trees. Contemplating whether to investigate, I hesitated. The probable cause was someone else's campfire, a perplexing occurrence considering the absence of trails leading to this specific spot. Wary of encountering unfamiliar individuals, I opted to remain at my campsite, dismissing the incident as an oddity, and continued with my day, engaging in various camp activities. Approximately an hour later, a casual survey of my surroundings gripped me with an unexpected sense of unease. My body tensed as I spotted a man standing silently in the forest. The suddenness of his presence and the way he gazed in my direction unsettled me. Unsure of how long he had been there, I nervously waved, but the man remained motionless. Although too far away to discern if he was watching me, he maintained his fixed gaze on the campsite for almost 15 minutes before vanishing into the woods. The eerie encounter left me unnerved. The man's behavior was inexplicable, and a lingering sense of discomfort enveloped me. Determined to ease my concerns, I waited for a few hours, vigilant of my surroundings. Eventually, curiosity overcame caution, and I ventured to the spot where the man had stood. To my bewilderment, there was nothing unusual, just another section of the forest. Returning to my campsite as the sun began to set, I attempted to dismiss the disquieting thoughts that plagued me. However, as darkness fell, an unanticipated flickering light caught my attention. Another campfire illuminated the forest, situated not in the direction of the earlier smoke but close to where the mysterious man had stood. Strangely, the fire seemed deserted, lacking any signs of human presence. A sense of foreboding gripped me as I scrutinized the dark expanse. My gaze darted across the surroundings, and behind a bush, mere feet away, I made eye contact with a face peering back at me. Panic surged through me, but the figure remained motionless, perhaps unaware that I had spotted them. I retreated behind my campfire, eyes fixed on the intruder. The ensuing 30 minutes felt like an eternity as the figure slowly receded into the shadows, disappearing into the depths of the forest. Wide-eyed and alert, I kept watch throughout the night, the rustling leaves and nocturnal sounds amplifying my paranoia. When the first light of dawn began to penetrate the forest, I wasted no time packing up my belongings. The woods that had once been a sanctuary now harbored an ominous presence, and an instinctive fear warned me against lingering. With swift determination, I walked briskly back to my car, leaving behind the enigma that had cast a shadow over my peaceful retreat. Whatever clandestine activities unfolded in those woods, I had no intention of becoming entangled in their potential harm. We moved to a new town when I was 7. Any memories before that move I consider to be very early childhood, and a lot of those memories are blurry at this point. This is one of those memories. This happened at some age before 7, I know that. If I had to guess, I was 5, maybe 6. There was the local town library that our mom would always take my brothers and I to. It was a few blocks away, actually. I remember this one day. It was my mom and my little brother, who was a toddler at this point. We started the day at the mall, probably spent hours there tagging along with our mom shopping. Whenever we'd go to this mall, she'd always bring us to the McDonald's inside the mall to get us ice cream cones. I remember we got ice cream on this particular day, because on the way to the library after leaving the mall, I still had some of the cone left in my hand. We arrived to the library, and there was this kids' computer section that my mom would let me stay at and play computer games while she went and did whatever she'd do. When I got bored of playing whatever old online computer games there were at the time, I got up and started walking through the aisles of books in the kids' section of the library, looking for the I Spy books. The kids' section was in the far corner of the library, and while I was walking from aisle to aisle, I heard a psst from behind me. I turned around and saw nothing. I was looking at the back wall of the library, which had another shelf of books leaning on it. Then I saw half of a grown man's face peer around the shelf and said, "Peekaboo." I remember laughing and feeling no sense of danger. He did it again. He went back behind the shelf, then peered out his head again and said, "Peekaboo." Again, I laughed. He asked me what I was looking for, and I said the I Spy books. He said he'll help me find it. He came over and took my hand and started leading me through the aisles, leading us, I guess, to the section of books that began with the letter I. And there they were, at least 5 I Spy books next to each other. I grabbed my favorite one, the treasure hunt one, and he said, "Let's go sit down and play." He led me to a table in the corner by a couple children's computers, and we started looking through the pictures. This went on for some time, and he was asking me questions about myself as we played I Spy. The question that still sticks out to me the most is, "Who are you here with?" And I told him my mom and little brother. At some point after this, he said something implying that there's a kid's playroom downstairs, and I, at that age, never knew that there was a downstairs to the library. He said we could take the book down there. He led me to the door that led to the basement of the library, which, for reference, is actually where events and meetings for certain clubs and organizations are held. And there is actually a little playroom down there, I guess for parents who have to bring their kids with them during any of the meetings. The man led me to that little playroom. There were various toys in there, most notably a Lego set and a Lego table, and then there were a bunch of chairs. He set the I Spy book down on the Lego table. This is where things get really uncomfortable thinking back on. As he was trying to forcibly get me to play with the toys, I started to get uncomfortable. And around this time, over the loudspeaker, a female librarian said into the intercom, "Will Liam come to the front, please? Your mother's looking for you." At this time, the man went to turn off the lights in the room, and now it was pitch black inside. He said in the dark, "We're gonna play hide and seek." This was the first moment I was genuinely freaked out, and I started to yell for my mom. I remember he kept telling me to be quiet, and his voice was getting louder as he was getting closer to me in the dark, until he had his hands on me. I thankfully managed to run past him and out the door of that room, and I ran down the dark hallway back to the stairs. And as I was running up the stairs, I had that same childhood feeling of running up the basement stairs after turning off the lights, only 100 times worse, because I genuinely was scared I was going to be grabbed. I made it back to the main floor of the library and ran straight to the front desk, calling for my mom. She was at the front desk with a group of librarians, and I remember the relief on my mom's face when she saw me. I told her there was some man who took me downstairs, and she literally lost it. The next thing I remember from there was a bunch of police in the building searching around, but I never saw that man again. He must have exited the building through a different way. I remember speaking to some woman who was probably with the police, asking me very delicate questions. I never really asked my mom about this experience that many times, because it's very uncomfortable, and I'd rather just not think of it. When I was growing up, I lived with my mom in a small house. During my middle school and high school years, she took up an overnight job, so most nights of the week I was alone between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. This happened a few months before I graduated high school. On a regular night at 7:30, I said goodbye to my mom like usual, then I played some video games for a few hours. It was a school night, so I couldn't stay up super late, but I still stayed up later than I should have. Around 11:30, I shut everything off and went up to my room to get in bed, but I was on my phone for probably another hour before falling asleep. When I woke up, I thought I heard a door closing downstairs. I looked over at the clock next to my bed and saw it was 3:30, so I assumed my mom had just gotten home from work early. I turned over and tried to go back to sleep as I listened to footsteps walking around downstairs. After a minute, though, I started listening more intently. Usually, my mom would go straight upstairs when she got home to get ready for bed, but it sounded like they were just walking around. As I listened for another 2 or 3 minutes, I realized they weren't even stopping at all. They were going through each room, walking slowly as if they were taking a tour of the house. I started to get a little nervous that it might not be my mom and could be someone else. I got up and turned on the light in my room, and almost right away, the footsteps stopped. I listened from the other side of my door and still heard nothing. Carefully, I opened it and looked out into the hallway. I was expecting to see some light coming from downstairs, but the whole house was dark. Whoever was walking around down there hadn't turned on any of the lights, which frightened me more than I already was. I made sure not to make any sounds and stepped further down the hallway until I was at the top of the stairs. Then I knelt down and looked through the railing to see into the living room. Nobody was there, and even in the dark, I could tell that nothing had been moved at all. My PlayStation was still there, and in my head, that was a telltale sign that there was nobody else in the house except for maybe my mom. I mean, if someone was here to rob us and had walked through the whole house, they definitely would have taken the most expensive thing in the room. At that point, I just wanted to know if it was my mom who was walking around, or if I was having some weird auditory hallucinations. I walked down the steps to the bottom and called out, "Well, you all?" There was no response or signs of movement in the whole house, so I walked through the hallway into the kitchen. Right away, I saw a shoe print on the tile floors, and when I looked up, my eyes locked on a figure. Across the room, a man was sitting at the dining table with a dark mask on. His clothing was all black, which made it difficult to fully make out any features of him. He was looking at me, but he didn't say anything or even move. He stared at me with an emotionless look. I ran straight back upstairs and locked myself in my room as I called 911. The operator kept me updated on the police's estimated arrival, but after a minute, I heard the man slowly walk across the downstairs and over to the bottom of the staircase. I was whispering to the operator in a panic until I heard the front door open and the man walking away from the house. Not even 30 seconds later, I saw headlights shining through the window. My mom pulled into the driveway and I ran outside to meet her and tell her what was going on. When police got there, they did a thorough search and found nothing incriminating that would help us find the man. But from what it seems, the man wasn't there to rob us. He also didn't seem to have any interest in me either, which means that he was most likely trying to hurt or abduct my mom. It would then make sense why he broke in only minutes before my mom usually gets home. It makes me think about what could have happened if I hadn't gone downstairs to see who was there, or if my mom had gotten home just a minute earlier and gone inside, unknowing of the man that was waiting for her.